Everyone, in just a second, I'm going to be introducing author Diane Byington, and I am so happy that I came across this book, her debut novel, Who She Is. Such a good book, set in the 60s for the most part, and it talks about this girl who's a really good runner, and little did I know that you couldn't just run on track teams back then. What? I was like, really? I mean, all the things that I learned in this book about women's sports, I just couldn't believe it. Anyway, I was born in 64. I feel like I've always known women in these sports, and I guess not. So I am so happy I got to read this. Everyone, here is Diane. Hi, everyone. I am so excited because I am speaking with author Diane Byington, and I hope I said that right. I think I did. And we're talking about her debut novel, Who She Is. And I am so excited because I could not believe this was your debut novel. Okay, everybody's looking at the picture of the book. I have it on my Kindle, and it's not a good, you can't really see the cover. But I just can't believe it, Diane. I went back and forth on Amazon. I'm like, she must have written something else. There must be something else out there. And it is your debut novel. I am so excited for you. You are getting tremendous reviews for this book.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Do you want to see the picture?
Do you have it? There it is. Yay. Okay. I forgot to ask you before, and then I realized I didn't have, I was like, oh, I don't have it in my hand. So yeah, I love that cover. I love it. And you just must be so excited. I mean, every Amazon and Goodreads review I read was just, they were like, oh my God, oh my God. And I was like, wow, everybody's having the same reaction that I had.
Oh, that's just so exciting to me. I can't believe it. Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, so let's talk about, before we talk about the book itself, let's talk about how you got to write the book, because you've obviously done other things in your life besides write this book. So what was your journey to this book?
Oh gosh, I was one of those people who always wanted to be an author, and it was one of those things, the bucket list thing, and I kept trying to write things, and they never worked out. And right before I had done this book, I started this book, I had spent 3 years on a book that didn't work ultimately. And that was so frustrating. So I decided, okay, I'm going to write something that's simple. It didn't turn out to be simple, but it started out simple as somebody who had a goal and who met their goal. But of course, there had to be obstacles in the way. So, okay, what about if somebody wanted to run like a race? But what would be the obstacles? Anybody's supportive these days of somebody who wants to run a race. So anyway, I looked around and I ran upon this event that happened in 1967 when Catherine Switzer was assaulted by the race director for wearing a bib in the Boston Marathon. And I said, that's it. That's it. What would it be like if somebody heard about that and wanted to run it after that? So that's not fair. So what would that be like? And that's where it started.
Oh, and what a story. I was saying I do intros to this video before we talk. And, I talk about you a little bit. And I was like, I was born in the 60s, okay, 64. And I was like, why do I only ever remember women's sports? Like, I didn't know that it was so difficult for women in the 60s. I mean, you think about track and field. It's like, you mean there wasn't always a girls' track and field? Like, that didn't happen? It's crazy.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
It is crazy. If it's somebody my age thinks that, just think about the girls now. Like, to think that they had to fight to, and I was thinking back, I was a cheerleader, okay? And, she comes across cheerleaders in the book in the very beginning. But, I was thinking, like, maybe there weren't that many, like maybe because cheerleading was bigger back then. Now somebody says they want to be a cheerleader unless they're doing it, very in a different competitive way. It's not really considered a sport. But back then I'm like, what sport options did I have in high school? We did have a track and field team, but that was in the late 70s,
Yeah. Yeah, so, I happen to be the same age as Faye,
Uh-huh.
and although she's not
Right.
me at all, I would never have the courage that she had. But anyway, there was no track and field for
There
girls in
wasn't
my high school or anything.
any. That is just, it's so mind-blowing, and I do remember when the NCAA started accepting more girl sport. Like, I don't know, there was a transition time where they had to have like equal sports or something in colleges around here. I'm in Pennsylvania, and I kind of remember a thing like that, which is now, you think about that and you're like, really? Like, because of my daughters, like, they have all the choices in the world, but now we have to realize is that it's because of girls like her. It's because of runners and other sports, but running in this book. And it's like, it's so simple. It's just running. And then what year did they, 1984 is when they had the women's marathon in the Olympics? Like, what? I don't even remember.
Yeah.
It's running. We're not talking about women playing football, okay?
I know. It's amazing to me. It's just amazing. And I think it's good for people now to understand what it was like then. So that was the purpose of writing the book.
Oh, well, it was a great story. I loved her. I loved her so much, and I loved how you incorporated. It's not historical fiction, but it does have a setting in the late '60s, early '70s for the most part of the book, and the it made me chuckle a lot of times because of her parents are strict. Now, let's not even go in because we're not giving spoilers, so we're not going to talk about other stuff. But it did make me chuckle because her parents kind of acted like parents in the '60s in a way.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, because I think back to how my parents were, and I'm like, boy, you know what? My kids do not appreciate. Because you really brought the feel of what the '60s were like for teenagers, and it's so different now. There were no cell phones. It was just a totally. So I thought you did such a great job in bringing that time period alive, and that was for somebody my age, that was a lot of fun, to reminisce. And then for somebody younger, it's like they can be like, really, like, real life. So you picked that time. I mean, to make because of. It seemed like it started the ball rolling on women running and then leading up to the Boston Marathon, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Okay. So your title, your chapter headings are songs. And you know what? It took me a while to pick that up. And then when I was reading reviews, I was like, why did everybody else pick that up before I picked it up? I was like trying to make sense out of the chapter titles. And I was like, oh, right. There were song titles. So that was fun, right?
That was really fun. Somewhere in there I decided to do it. And so what I looked up were the top songs during 67 and 68. And so I looked up all of those and tried to find the right place, the right chapters for them. And then right after the book came out, I did some things on Facebook and Twitter where every day I played the video for that particular song. And I had so much fun doing that.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. And I love how songs make you have that feel of the time. So I always attribute, because you hear a song and you're like, what was I doing? Oh, I remember that song. It always sparks a memory to me,
Right.
Yeah. So I bet everybody loved that. I mean, this book, just for everybody that knows, the links are going to be listed below. This book just came out May 30th. And I think that's why I was so shocked. Like, so many reviews, Diane. So I was so shocked.
Well, actually, the ebook came out March 20th, and the paperback just came out.
Okay.
So that's how come there have been some reviews already.
Who was it published through?
Red Adept Publishing.
Okay. So they just decided to do it that way? I haven't really seen that too much, but they decided to release the Kindle and then release the paperback.
Oh, it's a long story, and things just kind of got messed up, and we were waiting for a Publishers Weekly review, and in the end they decided not to review it. So meanwhile we had waited all this time for PW to review it, and then they didn't do it. So, oh well.
It's the life of an author.
Yeah.
You get to learn all that fun stuff your first time around, you know?
Right, yeah.
Okay, well, you know, I always like to pick like a quote or something that I love from each book, right? And I usually make tons of notes, and I made tons of notes with this book. And usually it's either a first line or a quote in the middle. But this is not a spoiler, but you have one of the best last lines, and I don't find that very often. So I thought that I had to tell you because, and I'm going to read it because it's not a spoiler, but what it did was it showed, because Faye has this like transition this whole book. I mean, she is growing and growing and growing, and then I don't want to give it away, but I have to like talk around it. But you know, the point is that she got to this place by this sentence, and that's why I loved it so much. So your last line, in case you don't remember, your last two lines is, "Maybe I will let him call me. I like talking to him too." And, you know, as a woman, I don't know. I just, when I finished the book, I was just like, oh, that is so perfect. What a great line that is. Like, you know, she fights and fights so, you know, and it was kind of like not fighting. You know, then she got to the place where she wasn't fighting anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
That's what I got out of it, anyway.
An acceptance part and looking forward to the next chapter in her life, and maybe it wouldn't be so hard.
Right. Exactly. Like almost this like sigh I wanted to do at the end. You know, like,
yeah.
She, you know, she accomplished a lot, but there was just kind of like a sigh, like, it can be, you know, who knows? You know, who knows what the future holds?
Right.
You know?
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, so I just love that. But you and I have something else in common that I just have to ask you about. And everybody else out there, whatever, you're just going to have to deal. You are a weaver, okay? And
yeah.
Okay, I am a crocheter, right?
Okay.
So I had gotten into buying this, like, raw alpaca hair, okay? Mm-hmm. It was not working out well, okay? Because I'm not a weaver.
It's so fine. It's really hard to work with. Yeah.
But we have a lot of alpacas here, especially in western Pennsylvania. It's very plentiful, and people will give you like bags of it, okay? When they share their alpacas. But okay, so you weave goat hair?
Yes, it's mohair. It's mohair.
So
it's called mohair.
It's called mohair. Do you sell it?
Mostly I spin it. I would sell it if I knew where to sell it. You want some? I'll send you some.
I am, you know, like I started going down this path. I dye my own yarn. Now I buy yarn from overseas, and then I dye it myself, and then, you know, I crochet with it. And, you know, there aren't that many of us, okay? It's really a difficult, you know, not anymore. I mean, it kind of seems to have, like, I'm finding more people on Facebook who actually crochet, and, you know, but a lot of people that you just meet every day. I mean, and my grandmother taught me, but everybody she knew crocheted. You know, so it's kind of like I learned, and then, so I started buying the raw and started dyeing it. And then I was like, everybody in my family was like, you're going to buy an alpaca, aren't you? I'm like, no, I promise I don't buy an alpaca. I did think about it, though, because I was like, oh, you could just shear it, and then you could, but I just couldn't work with it. So I never thought about buying an alpaca. But, so what do you, okay, just a little, like, I just have to know, like, what you do. Just a little bit of, like, what, you shear it? And then you...
Okay, so we don't do it anymore. We finally got rid of the goats, but I have a whole garage full of stuff. I do not shear them myself, but I do hold them down while the guy shears them. Mm-hmm. So he shears it, and then I send it off to be processed, to be cleaned and all of that. And then it comes back in roving, which is a long strip. And then I spin it, and then I will dye it or use it white, and we had one gray goat and 2 white goats. So sometimes I mix that, and then I spin it, and then I weave something with it. Right now, I've been weaving bookmarks. So
Wow. What
so
a great idea! That is a great idea. Yeah, so you don't make the row. That's what I was wondering, is if you like took that raw hair and then that's the problem with it, is it needs to be it needs to come out like
yeah,
very,
I've got the paddles to do that, and I've done that and I did it for years. And finally, I decided, I don't like that part so much, so
yeah.
so I sent it off to be processed.
Yeah, and that was my problem with the alpaca, is I couldn't get it to be, to get the roving right. And you're right, I didn't even know I could send it away. I ended up throwing the bag away. I was just so frustrated, and I've tried spinning just from a spindle spinning, and that's hard.
Yeah, alpaca's hard to work with.
I had visions, though, of making my own yarn. Like, that was my vision of someday, like, making it and then crocheting, dyeing it and then the whole process. But it didn't work out that well. So, but I found that really, when I saw your bio, I'm like, oh, I get to talk to somebody who actually knows how to do that. That is so cool.
Yeah.
But you don't have the goats anymore, so.
No, we decided enough was enough. When we found the place in Florida, so I need to tell you about finding the place in Florida.
Okay.
I wanted to set the book in somewhere that I knew. Right. And I grew up in Florida, but I didn't want to set it there.
Where did you grow up in Florida?
Excuse me?
What town did you grow up in Florida?
Oh, I grew up in Brandon, which is east of Tampa.
Oh, okay.
And what I had thought originally, there was yet another subplot in the book that had to do with buying up the land for Disney, and that's a really fascinating story, how people bought up the land for Disney.
Yeah.
And so I wanted it in a place that could be like Kissimmee, which is the place around where Disney was built, but it couldn't be Kissimmee because that's built up now, and so it needed to be someplace that was around there. And so I did all of this research and finally located this little town called Mount Dora. And Mount Dora, if you haven't ever been there, is so beautiful.
So beautiful.
It's a wonderful little town. So I went there. I drugged my husband there. We rented a house for a week while I researched this book. So I decided not to call it Mount Dora because some pretty dark things happened there that I don't know if they happened in Mount Dora or not, but I didn't want those people being mad at me. So I changed the name to Valencia. And anyway, we liked it so much that we decided to come back next year for longer, 3 weeks. So we came back for 3 weeks, and then we thought, why don't we stay longer? And I can do my work wherever I am, and he was retiring. And so then we thought, well, this is so great. Why don't we just buy a place there? So we bought a little mobile home, and now we spend winters there. And it all was because of researching for this book, and the stupid little subplot didn't even make it into the final book.
Oh, that's awesome. I go there every Christmas. So, yeah,
okay.
I'm very familiar with Mount Dora. That is so awesome. I was actually thinking that it might be near there, but I didn't know. I lived in Jupiter, Florida for a long time, and then my mom and my brother lived there, so I'm very familiar with Florida, so that's why I asked.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to get together next Christmas.
Yeah, no kidding. I will definitely be there. So what are you working on now that this book is out there?
Okay, so I have the next book is a time travel book. It's a little different from this one.
Yes.
You know the idea that, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to go back and do something differently? You made a mistake in your life, and this woman finds journals written by Nikola Tesla where he had actually discovered time travel. Now, this is not true. This is fiction, but she finds his journals, and so she decides to try to try it out. And so she ends up going back 15 years to change a decision that she thought was the worst decision she'd ever made. And of course, it doesn't work out that way, but that's the next book.
Oh, I can't wait. I mean, I'm sure you're just writing it, but because it's so soon, but you got to find me. I will definitely read it. We'll talk about it. Okay. That sounds so cool. I want you to show everybody that cover one more time, though, because I love the cover, and yeah, I love that cover. Yeah, perfect. I mean, come on, with the shoes, and that's what a perfect cover.
I really loved it too. Thank you.
Yeah. So I will have all of your links, and I will have the link right to Amazon so you can buy the book. It'll be right to your page. But seriously, when you're done with your book, whenever that is, you know where to find me, and we'll talk about it, because you are an amazing writer. I am so happy that I found you. I enjoyed your book so much. Everyone, I felt so bad because Diane, as I'm talking to Diane, like the sun is just coming upon me, and my eyes were like watering and squinting, and it was a perfectly cloudy day, and now look at me. Oh, well. Anyway, it was so much fun to talk to her. Really, this book is great. Debut novel. I mean, if you go on there, on her Amazon, you will see all the amazing reviews. I'm not the only person who loved this book. So I just want to thank Diane, and I'm so happy that I met her, and I'm so happy that I got to read this book. And before I get blind, I got to go. Bye.